Um, Good evening or good afternoon, whatever time you're seeing this video. I apologize again for having to do this online, but scheduling conflicts have come up, and I kind of don't have much of a choice. But anyways, you guys are doing well. So with the assignment, so I don't see any issues. So let's quickly go over some of the issues from lab number 5, real quick. So if you didn't get 20 out of 20, this is some of the reasons. So one of the biggest ones that came up was here, not having all the formulas copy and pasted down below was one of them. And also the fact that if I didn't see them, remember you had to merge these cells so that I could see them in their entirety. Okay, if you can't see the formulas, I can't see the formulas. All right. Some of the other issues that came up in here, you guys were just copying and pasting the formulas, so it would just carry down. So, for example, you did this sort of thing, and you had it all in there. So they needed to be each and every one separate. So that was one that came up, and that happened in here and here. Some of you also for the trainers had pull downs. Same thing where you kind of did this, and it was all the way down, and you had drop downs for the whole sheet when it only needed to be in the top two, right? Because the idea is though that when we change one, it changes them all, right? Some of you also had memberships where they reference from the other sheets. You didn't reference them; you just typed in the names. So be careful of that. That was the whole purpose of this assignment, was to just practice using referencing. We did it here from a previous tab, and we did here within the cells, and then we did the two formulas, and then the revisitation of the if statement, and using it that way, using greater than. All right. So make those changes before you go ahead and continue today. Today's going to be kind of some cool stuff. We're going to talk about um, referencing a little bit more. We're going to um, apply average again. We'll do vlookups. Vlookups is a new one. And I'll show you do some cool things with inserting links with it into an image. Okay? So the first thing we're going to work on is we're going to clean this sheet up a little bit. Because remember I said about referencing is that what you want to do is you want to have everything on one sheet so that when, in this case, the trainers would be the one inputting the scores, you don't want them have access to the scheduling or this here. So you could actually eliminate this column or hide the column, but you don't want this to be on this sheet, right? So the very first thing we're going to do today, and it's changed over the years. It used to be you have to retype it and reformat the cells so that this pull down is referenced from the other sheet. But right now, you guys should be able to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the three trainers, and we're not going to copy them. We're going to cut them. So right click, cut. We're going to go to membership, and we're going to paste them right here. Boom. So now, let's see. I'm going to change the view here for a sec. We're just going to make sure that everything worked out. And whenever you do something kind of a little bit crazy, I always want to double check before you get too in depth. All right. So let's say I have Alice and Jay working. Let's say Jay called in sick, or Jay doesn't like Jay. He likes Jason. All right. Or maybe we have a new instructor, Jason got sick and is no longer working for us, but we can edit it here accordingly. So let's have a look on our evaluation sheet. And Jason is there now. So all the control happens on the membership tab, but it impacts the evaluation sheet, which is really cool. So when I used to do this sort of thing, I'd have all the things um, that needed maybe editing on one sheet. So that could be birth dates, it could be phone numbers, it could be payment options, all that sort of stuff, where no one else had access to it. And then it impacted the other sheet. So I'm the only one that had access to it. And then all my other employees, or in this case, my judges, in this case, um, they could go in and enter scores and they could edit things here. But I had total control of everything on here um, with respects to the names, everything. So everything was on one sheet. You weren't jumping back and forth, back and forth. Okay. All right. So we're going to put this one on hold for a moment, and we're going to do some work on, just because we're here, we're on the membership tab. And this is actually the sheet that you're going to be submitting. You only need to submit one today. Um, we're only going to do this one here. But anyways, let's get into it. So let's say the Durham Mountain Bike Association wanted us to find out what the average of our riders are. Okay, so if we look at our ages that we have, so we're going to, let's put average age. Okay, and they also want to know, I'm going to change the view here so you guys can see it, their total revenue in sales for memberships. Okay, so we have the average age. So we're going to enter a formula there in a second. And then here, with our total sales, we're going to have total revenue. Oops. We're going to add those up. Okay, so those are the two we're going to do. And right now, we're not going to make any formatting. We're just going to leave it raw. So don't worry about putting borders and that sort of stuff. So let's enter the age, or the average age. So if you guys remember, it's equals average, open bracket. And because I typed up here, it didn't suggest a solution. So we're going to highlight the range that we want. In my case, it's H4 to H13. Close bracket. Oh, and it says January. So that may happen to some of you. Does anyone know why that might have been? Do you remember some of the issues we had when we did age? You remember we had sometimes when we formatted, we had to put in the date. Remember all that? So if we look at our format for that cell particularly, and again, it may or may not have come up. It depends. But we need to make it a number, because my guess it's somewhere here formatted as a date, but we need it to be a number. And then we put a number, and then we have an average age of 20.7, which is silly. So let's get rid of the decimal places while we're at it. So the average age is 21. Okay. There's the formula there. Okay, so just double check that. Some of you, it might have worked right away. It all depends on when we're playing around in formatting, but keep in mind when that pops up. And the formula for total revenue equals, not average, it's suggesting average. We want to sum. So you can see here, the AI or the Google Sheets is suggesting. Just be careful when you click on that. Just double check. It's okay, but just get in a habit of just checking, because sometimes it may include something else. So it looks like N4 to N13, that's correct. So we can just hit enter, and it's 810, and we're good. So our total revenue, we're assuming it was all paid, but that's the total revenue that's possibly made when everyone signs up. All right, so those are the two formulas. So that's a bit of a review from last week, just for those that maybe have missed it or wanted to see that again. But two simple formulas. The next one is we're going to look at, I'm going to type down here. No, we're going to do this instead. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to have to do is highlight our merge cell here, right? A1 we need to unmerge that for now. So we're going to unmerge that. We need to go to A1 and see how it says Durham Mountain Bike Association. So we're going to, if you just double click on it, there we go. We're going to cut it. Oops. 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 I gotta click out of it. Okay. So it's unmerged. It might be just easier to do this. So we're just going to copy it. Right click, copy, and we're going to paste it in cell C1 here. So we're going to hit paste. So now it's duplicated, and we're going to delete the one in A1. So now it's clear. Now we're going to merge these cells back. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're breaking up the total merged cell into two separate ones. So now we need to center our line. We need to merge that. Now it's brought over. We need to, I'm just going to move this out of the way for now. We need to merge A1 and B1 again. There we go. So now we have two sets of merged cells. We have A1, B1, and then we have the one with our membership. If you find it, depending on your name or title, or just delete the title instead of I was copying and pasting into it, just retype it. It's not a big deal. And just adjust it accordingly, because if you cut it, sometimes it takes the paint with it, so the fill. Anyways, let's move along. So let's click into A1, B1, because this is where our logo belongs. And we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to insert a link. And then here we can have the link titled whatever we want. It can be link, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put Dimba, right? And then here it's asking you to search or paste for the link. So we're going to go to the Durham Mountain Bike Association website and copy the URL. So I'm going to slide over. There is our URL. So if you triple click, copy, we have the URL, go back. We're going to paste it to there. And we're good. We're going to hit apply. And now what you'll see, I'm just going to click out of it, you see the Dimba logo, right? And you can see when you hover over it, you get a shortcut to the website or a link to the website. So that's how you insert a link, but we're going to make it one step further. This is a cool little trick that I've used lots of times, that a lot of supervisors and boss kind of cool. They don't really know how it works, but and then things have changed a little bit. But let's go through this. So first of all, let's go back to this link. We're going to go to edit the text color, right? So we're going to go to text color. We're going to do little sword or the eyedropper. It's probably this color here, but I can't remember. I'm just going to make sure. So I want this color. Now all of a sudden, ta-da, it's invisible. It's still there, right? See the link comes up, it's still there. So now that that's done, grab the logo, throw it back up over top of the link that you can't see now. And now what happens is when you hover over the logo, your link pops up, which is pretty cool. Now, that being said, a lot of websites now in some formats, I don't think you can do it in Google Sheets yet. I'm sure it's just a matter of time. But when you insert an image or a logo, you can actually attach a link to it. But this is kind of a cool workaround of just showing you how you can have a link somewhere and just keep it hidden, right? Because technically that link could be here, it could be anywhere. You just match the color and keep it blind if you wanted to, right? Which is kind of a cool little feature. All right, so that's kind of cool. I've done that a few times. People always seem a little amazed how that works, but it's a cool little feature. It makes it look really professional. All right. All right, I think we are done with this sheet for now. And this is the sheet that you guys are going to be submitting to me, by the way. let's go to the evaluation sheet. All right. So we are going to now introduce a vlookup. Vlookup stands for vertical lookup. And what this allows us to do is search a name. So keep in mind, Durham Mountain Bike Association has over 800 riders. And I'm sure there's one or two Mikes or Steves or Kevins or multiple names, Julies and Alice's and all that sort of thing. And maybe in this case here, we want to make it easier. We don't have to scroll through the entire 800 riders. We want to be able to just search, and we can either have it spit up whatever we want it to spit up, their score, their address, their phone number, whatever we want to. But in this case, we're going to have it spit out the overall average. But it's important to note that when you're using vlookup, because we've inserted these spaces, which will be more prevalent once we do all the formatting and making it look pretty, all these spaces, vlookup doesn't like that. Okay, so we're going to have to do a quick little modification to make life easier for the vlookup. So let's start doing that now. We need some rows and columns. There's some extra rows and columns. So let's add, let's add 2 columns to the left of the first name. So I already have 1, so insert 1 more. So we have 2, and then let's insert some rows above. I'm going to do, how many more? We'll do a row above. Let's just do 1 more for fun, just in case I need it. Row above. Perfect. Okay, so make sure you have a whole bunch of rows above before we get going, and more importantly, make sure that you have 2 columns. Okay, so we're going to call this helper column 1, and this will be helper. You can call this whatever you want, because at the end of the day, on a spreadsheet, we would hide this anyway. So, but it just helps from a reference standpoint what we're doing. So essentially, what we want to do is we want to bring 2 things. We're going to bring both these names, first and last names, together. There is another way to do it. It's called the concatenate formula. It's really complicated, but this is a quick and dirty way to do it. It works just as well without getting too complicated. All right. So we need to put both those names together, and we need to put them here so that there's no spaces in between. Okay, because we got to eliminate that. All right, so how do we do that? Well, it's just like referencing. So we just make equals. We want this cell, and then we're going to insert Shift 7, and you get the little and logo. And it's like, what other cell do you want now? I want this cell. And then you can see it pops up Steve Mendez, and you hit enter. Okay, now you can't copy it down, because it still will take the spaces in it, so you can't do that. So unfortunately, you have to go through each one of these for now. Equals that. And that one equals. So we're just going to continue this down with all the different first and last names. And we're going to do 1, 2, 3. We're missing 1, 2, 3. Oh, we forgot Mike. I jumped ahead. This is equals. Can we do a shortcut? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go cut. Paste. Mike. And return. That's better. Equals. Cool. And Bradley. Enter. Awesome. So now we have those. And we're just going to make sure we can see the names. That's fine. And then we can pull, when we enter the vlookup, we say we're going to look at, when you see this name, what do we want it to pull up for us? In this case, we're going to have it pull up the average score. In the assignment that you have, guys, it's going to ask you to pull up fail, pass, or fail or not evaluated. So be careful of that, okay? For lab number 6. Or, yeah, sorry, lab number 6, 7, whatever it is. Okay, so we just do the exact same thing. So we reference, so we'll equals that cell, whatever is in that cell. And then be careful, see it's suggesting the autofill. You can see the spaces in here, so it's not going to work. So just delete that and continue equals. Make sure you're clicking on the right one. Equals that one equals 0 equals that one. Perfect. Right? So now you can see Mendez's score was a 4. Kevin's is a 0. And I sometimes just check it. I'll enter right here, go to Kevin's, and I'll just change it just to make sure it changes. And it does. So it's good. So I'm just going to do that just to double check it. So that's all good. So we have all the names and all the scores. So now what we're going to do, we're going to insert a place where they have their name. So we're going to put name. And we're going to create a pull down so that whoever's on here, we can look for this name, and it's going to spit out the score. Okay, so you guys should know how to do that. We've done this 50 million times. So data validation, add a rule, right? Drop down from range, little window, select all the names from helper 1, hit OK. Scroll down, don't forget this one. Some of you always keep forgetting this one. Advanced options, let's get rid of the chip because it messes the spacing up. Go to arrow, and done. Now we check, and if we go to the pull down, there's all the names, which is super cool. Okay. So keep in mind, and I just want to bring this up, because everything is referenced, we can go back to the membership sheet, and let's say, remember I mentioned before about Steven? Let's say Steve just likes Steve, right? We can make the change here, and it impacts everything here, 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 here on the pull down. Everything gets fixed. That's the best part about using referencing cells, because you make one change and it fixes the entire spreadsheet. So it's really important. So don't find yourself retyping things over. Sorry, I just realized there's a number missing there. Okay, so now we're going to enter the new formula. So this is called vlookup. So equals vlookup. Okay, and it's gonna. We're asking it. So what do we want to look up? We want to look up whatever's in this cell. Okay, we can, wherever that cell can be, but whatever it is, whatever we type in that cell, that's what we want to look up. And where do we want to look it up? In this case here, because all these have the spaces and stuff, which vlookup doesn't like, we are going to use our little helper columns that we created. We're going to look in that range. So somewhere between A5 and B10 in this range, when I type in a name, this is what I want to find. Okay, so comma, you're going to look in that area for it. And then once we find that name, I want you to print what they call an index, but in this case, we're just it's a column. So it's column 1, column 2. Okay, so we would type 2 because we want this. And last but not least, we have options to look for something that's similar. So like if it said Steven or Steve, but we want it to be exact, it defaults as true. So if you're just sort of hit enter right now, it enter true, but we want to enter false, and false will give us an exact lookup, so that we're looking exactly the way it's typed. All right, so you're going to hit enter. So those are the 3. So C3 is where the cell we're looking at, for whatever's in that cell, the range, the column within this range, right? This is column 1, this is column 2. If this range was over here somewhere, I'll do an example of that in a minute because I want to explain that further. So that's where everyone tends to get messed up on this number here. Where does this number come from? And then false because we want it to be exact. So enter. And it says NA. Why? Because we haven't selected a name. So when I hit Steve's name, now Steve's score pops up, which is 4, which was his, I'm just going to hide that evaluation, that was the score. Yeah, his average was 4, right? I'm just going to make Steve's name there. Steve's name, and then let's try Cole. So if we select Cole, his score pops up, 11. Perfect. So I just quickly want to go over this formula again and talk about this range. So assuming none of these spaces were here, okay, and we selected a range that looked like this, and let's say there was no empty cells. It's very, very important to understand that. And we needed to enter that vlookup. This would be column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This would be column 9. So instead of where we have 2, we would have 9. So it's all relative to the range and what column within that range that you want it to print. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense because it's important. Because you'll have to change yours when you do the assignment. All right. And actually, we'll just title that score. Okay, so there's the vlookup formula. So what cell do you want to look up? The range, the column within the range, and always, always, always just type false. So it's going to give you the exact. Okay, because the default is true, and we want it to be exact because it could be confusing. You could have another Bradley or another Cole, maybe Cole spelled differently with a K or something crazy like that. Okay. All right. So for the, actually, let's do this first. Let's get through all this first. Let's go back to the membership. All right. So the one last thing I'm going to show you, and then I'm just going to explain some stuff for the lab that you need to do. We're going to freeze a column because remember, or sorry, freeze a row, which is handy when you have, in this case, I know here we only have 10, but if we had 800 riders, and you scroll up right now, the headings go away. So what we're going to do is we're going to freeze this column so we know what each represent. So we go to View, Freeze, up to row 3, and it's showing up to row 3 because I clicked row 3. If I clicked row 2, it would go freeze. It would show up to row 2. Okay, so we want row 3 because it's going that way the headings freeze. View, freeze, up to row 3. And now you can see there's a little gray line that goes in there. That's just a fictitious line. It doesn't really get shown. But you can see now the heading and title and logo and everything stays frozen. So you know exactly what each is. And also handy when you're maybe counting names or taking attendance or that sort of thing. It kind of can count. That's a great little tool to have. Okay, so that's freezing a row. All right. Now for the assignment, or the lab that I'm just going to release, I need you to copy over the formulas. So the vlookup formula, right? So you're going to copy it. And I want you to paste the formulas over here so I can see it. Okay. Now I know it's going to be NA, but that doesn't matter. It's because it's referencing, it's trying to look for that range in here, and it doesn't like that. But that's okay. That's not what I don't care about that because when you submit, you're going to change the view to formula, show formulas, and I'm going to see the formula. So it's going to be all good. I'm not worried about the error. But what I will be watching again, this continues to be an issue, is that when I can't see the entire, if you can't see the entire formula, I can't see the entire formula. So I don't want you guys to lose marks. So make sure you merge whatever cells you need so that I can see the entire formula. All right? Same thing for the average, right? You can copy and paste it down here. That's good. As long as I can see it, I'm all good. And the same thing with the sum. All right. So just make sure when you're copying and pasting, pasting formulas, that I can see them. Please, 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 please. I want to give you guys the marks. I hate taking marks away because I can't see it. All right. And I think that's it. All right. So also be careful because I'm asking for a screenshot of this sheet here with the formulas that you brought over. Don't worry about the evaluation sheet. I know you did the work on it. I will be checking that in the next lab, so don't worry about that. Right now, we're just making sure that this is in here, and then you're able to copy the link. So when you take their screenshot, make sure you hover over your logo, and you take the screenshot with the logo highlighted and the shortcut popping up, or the link popping up, okay? And keep in mind, again, I want your DC Skills Camp file, not the Dimba file. I'm still getting those. I don't know why people are doing my mistake, not being careful. Take your time, read the instructions. Everything should be there. Um, yeah, and I think we're good. All right. So thanks again, guys. Sorry again we can't meet, but this seems to be working actually pretty good. So we don't have to have a nights. We have our nights free. But anyways, I'm hopefully to see you guys next week. Enjoy, and I will talk to you guys all soon. All right. Take care.